Hello world, it's Austin. Let's talk about being transgender and Christian. So this week I'm doing a Q&A/advice video because I have a lot of pain in my elbow and shoulder this week. I don't know what's going on. I think it's from typing too much, and I don't know if you know this, but making these videos actually takes a lot of behind-the-scenes work. I do a lot of research and I do a lot of writing. I write up a whole script for each video, and so I thought instead of doing that this week, maybe I should just rest my elbow and my shoulder a little bit and sit up straight and work on that old posture and just talk to you guys. So I'm going to try to keep my answers as concise as possible, but as always, you all have asked some amazing and difficult questions, and so first of all, I'm not a doctor or a therapist, so, take this all with a grain of salt, and secondly, just know that I'm trying to keep things as short as possible, and so if I make things seem simpler than they are, I understand that they're actually very complex. It's just hard to answer in a short amount of time. So, let's get into it. The first question is from somebody on Twitter, and I'm not going to share their name or handle or whatever because it wasn't directly in reference to questions for this video. But they were basically asking, is it valid to have a concern about young people under age 18, physically transitioning? Considering the fact that they're going through puberty and they have all these hormones, or maybe they're even pre-puberty, and they, considering the amount of life experience they've had, should we allow them to make decisions about their body when it comes to something as big and life-changing as taking hormones or getting surgery? My feelings and thoughts about this are that we can start teaching kids about their bodily autonomy and agency from a very young age. Obviously we want to teach things in an age-appropriate way, but I think you can start really little with kids 3-4 years old or whatever. When they get excited about getting a haircut that they really want or wearing clothes they really like, let them do that. They're expressing themselves in a really non-harmful way, and it teaches them that they have some agency over their body. In the same way that we teach kids as they get older that, no means no, right? When we're teaching sex education, we need to make sure that kids know that they have agency over their body. They can say stop, I don't want to do that, I don't like that, and that's okay. It keeps everybody safer, so that's great. When we talk about agency for trans folks that are transitioning younger, I think we have to kind of keep that same mentality about it. When it comes to medical transitioning, I know it's scary. I know it's scary to be yeah, my 16-year-old is going to make decisions about their body, about surgery that's going to affect them for the rest of their life. But when we look at kids who are persistent and insistent about their gender, that kind of stuff doesn't change. I think it's best to educate kids about the difference between gender expression, how we dress, how we act in the world, the difference between gender expression and gender identity. Because sometimes you just have a little girl who identifies as a girl but wants to do boy stuff, and that's totally legit. So if we can help educate more about those differences, we'll have fewer kids that are confused, right, quote unquote. And it will make it easier as they get older and they decide to take steps like this, like surgery or hormones, because they will be more sure. And if kids are insistent and persistent about their gender, I think they are allowed to make those decisions. Relatedly, another person on Twitter direct messaged me and asked that I not share their name, but they said their kid is trans and they are going to a doctor to try to get hormones and that kind of thing and start a physical transition, and their doctor is uncomfortable prescribing things for people under age 18. So they're kind of do we try to stick with this doctor and just wait, or do we find a different doctor? What do we do? In that situation, I would say that your best bet, even though it feels like you're getting the runaround, and I get that, and it sucks, and people are just being you take care of them. No, you take care of them. I know, that's terrible. But I think the best thing to do is to find a doctor, either through referral or some other process, or doing research yourself. Find a doctor that is familiar with trans issues, trans identities, and has worked with trans folks, is comfortable prescribing things to people at a younger age. I think it's better to have somebody who knows what they're doing and who feels confident than to try to talk your doctor into it if they don't feel confident about it, because it's going to be a better experience for both you and your kid to have a doctor that is knows what they're doing and has done this before and worked with other parents of younger kids before. Another question from Twitter was about changing your name in your school. So you're going back to school and you need your teachers or your principal or whoever or your classmates to start calling you by your chosen name. How do you do that? The first thing I would recommend is, if you're younger, to have your parent do this, or you can do this yourself if you're older, but to send out an email to all of your teachers and just say, hey, just to be aware, like, either I or my kid is going to be in your class this year, or your classes this year, and they're going by this name now, and we just wanted to, check in with you, make sure that you knew about the new name, make sure that you know to use these pronouns. If you have any other questions, feel free to contact me. That's it. I know it feels daunting to deal with like school administration if you've not done anything to change your name legally. That can be difficult. I would say that, again, it's more about working with people one-on-one than it is dealing with the bureaucracy. So like if you're in college, for instance, like sending an email to the registrar isn't going to get you anywhere because they can't change anything unless your legal records are changed. But you can email your professors and your advisor, anybody that you work closely with, and just be like, hey, here's what's going on, here's how I'd like to be addressed, this is my name now. Benjamin Coakley on Twitter asked, I'd be curious, how well do you think queer Christians acknowledge the T in LGBTQ+, and what would you like to see change? Basically, I think things are getting better. I think there has been a lot more talk lately about how you can't use LGBTQ+ and just mean white cisgender gay men. Because that has been a real problem in the past, in our culture as a whole and within Christianity. So I'm glad that that's kind of taking root. People are going, oh, you're right, maybe we shouldn't do that. What I would like to see happen in the future is I would like to see all of the people who are like real intense advocates for marriage equality and things like that, I would like to see them I want to, like, my instinct is to say get angry, but I don't think I want to say get angry. Get active when it comes to trans issues within the church, because I feel like in our culture, like within Christian circles, within our culture as a whole, we've kind of gone, cool, we have marriage equality, everything's done, and it isn't. And so I would like to see more push for that. I would like to see more push to support the people that are being most affected by violence right now, which is trans people of color, specifically trans women of color. Last one from Twitter, and then we're going to go over to Facebook. Another person on Twitter DM'd me, didn't want to share their name, that's totally okay, and they asked, I wanted to know your experience on finding a girlfriend as a trans Christian guy. I'm a trans guy, and I'm afraid I won't find a Christian girlfriend that would accept me. Dude, that is hard, I know. And like, I can't personally speak to that because my girlfriend isn't Christian, she's Jewish. And so I think it's difficult, but not impossible, because people especially, I think you're a younger person, like somebody we would categorize as like a millennial, right? Millennials are much more open to dating people that are not of the same faith as them, or don't share the exact same faith as them, which I think is really cool, because it means that we're having conversations that haven't happened before, or we're having conversations in relationships that are like really integral relationships in our lives, which is really cool. So anyways, I think that it is not impossible to find a Christian girlfriend who would date you and wouldn't care that you're trans and would think that's pretty awesome. Like, I know a lot of Christian women who would be like, yeah, that's totally not a big deal. So I think that's definitely possible. It may be more difficult if you are in like a super evangelical conservative community. Then it's much more, it's more difficult, and there's way more pressure to like find somebody else who is a Christian of your same denomination, you know, like somebody who matches up. But I don't think that's the end-all be-all. So if you don't see somebody in your community right now that you'd be like, cool, yay, I have like a dating pool. If you don't see that right now, it's going to be okay. There are people out there. I know how it feels, though, to be like, I'm trans. Can anybody even, like, am I lovable? Is that okay? And that's a sucky feeling, and I get it. So, but it's not true. Also, that's what we have to remember, is that there are people out there who love us because we're people, not because we're trans or not trans. You just sort of fall in love, and that stuff comes afterwards. So, it's gonna be okay. There are people out there, and don't be afraid to look outside the box a little bit. Alright, last question, so we don't get too long here. This is from Facebook. Again, it was a direct message, so I don't want to share the person's name. But they're basically asking about Romans chapter 14. And if you're not familiar with Romans 14, basically it's about living together in a community and like basically not putting stumbling blocks in front of other people, not causing other people to stumble over something that you hold to be important. They say, is there a time one should just lay low and stay quiet for the sake of unity? And how might this affect other queer Christians in the community, and especially youth who might not be out but still need to hear that God loves them as the person that they really are? So I'm going to make a whole video on Romans 14 because there's so much in there that needs to be sort of like taken apart and put back together and thought about, because it's a really interesting chapter. But for now, I will just say that for the sake of unity, yes, there are things that we need to put aside. We need to put aside things that are, so there's a church word for this. If you go to seminary, or if you are at all enveloped in church culture, there's this word, it's adiaphora, and it basically means like curtain hangings, like things that are not important. Like, you don't split a church over what color the carpet should be, or if you should have carpet, right? I mean, like, I guess that's probably happened in the past, unfortunately, but these are things that are not important, not essential to the gospel. They are not what we are a church for, or to do, or because of, any of that. So yeah, it's adiaphora. LGBTQ issues, I don't think they can be put in that category, because what we're talking about are people's very identities, people's being as created in the image of God. We're talking about people's lives at stake, because when people hear that they are sinful and gross and terrible and they're going to hell, they don't want to live anymore. And God doesn't want that for us. So yeah, I don't think that's something that we can just sort of lay by and say, you know what, for the sake of unity, we're not going to talk about it, because not talking about it is just as bad as saying negative things about it. That's what's been borne out in all of the studies that we've seen of youth growing up in churches, is like, if we're not saying something positive, they get negative messages from the culture, and so they assume that their church family will not support them. I don't think we can just lay low and be quiet, because there's too much on the line. There's too much on the line in terms of people's lives. There's too much on the line theologically about what God says about us and what our lives say about the God that we worship. So yeah, I don't think we can lay down on that one. But I also get the urge to be like, you know what? I'm just going to shut up so that we can all get along. So I totally understand. So anyways, I'm going to make a whole nother video on Romans 14. So thank you for that question. It was awesome. And thank you to everybody who asked questions today. I'll do another one of these in the future at some point. They're always fun to do, and I'm sorry if I got a little rambly. Let's close the video now before I ramble some more. Okay, everybody. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here next Wednesday. Peace.